Joining us right now on the conflict and the geopolitical and economic implications of it is North Island Chairman Glenn Hutchins. And Glenn, it's been a very long time since we've got to sit down with you. The world has changed drastically over the last couple of weeks. It has not been really reflected in financial markets to this point. But what do you think about, as a business leader, what this is going to mean? So
it's great to see you guys, especially you two. I guess Andrew and Joe are doing a work from home today. Look, there's a lot here that's in the Middle East that's personal for me, Becky. And I usually don't talk about personal stuff on TV. One of my first memories is being my life woken up before dawn and put on a plane to be evacuated from Cairo with my mother in 1967 when the war broke out. My father stayed through the war, basically held hostage at the American embassy. So that was one of my first memories. You grow up pretty quickly when you have that kind of experience. Right now, don't want to go into too much detail, but we have 3 close family members, young men, who are in the IDF, 1 in active service, 2 called up in the reserves. They're at arms defending their country today. And thirdly, CARE, the International Relief Organization, where I've been on the board, as you know, leader of the board for many, many years, has been in the Gaza Strip and Palestine for 75 years, since 1948, working feverishly over the weekend to try to provide relief supplies. Big victory. Was able to deliver 6,000 crates, 30-some thousand liters of water, bottled water, to women and children sheltering the Gaza Strip, their only source of water. So I see so many different parts of this perspective. It's hard just to focus on markets and the economy, but let me just tell you about that for a minute, if I can. Which is, so far, this war has had little impact on the markets. I think I also have some investments in Israel, one venture capital fund that I've been talking to, so I have insights into their companies, too. They are forging forward. They feel like after 9/11 for us, they'll be able to kind of rebuild and continue to go forward. So I feel pretty confident about them. But that's based upon the assumption locally and for broader markets that this war will be short and contained. That's not the goal of Iran, which wants to disrupt the new architecture of peace in the Middle East being forged between Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the United States, and thrives on chaos and conflict. It's not the goal of Russia, Iran's ally, that wants to divert resources and resolve on the part of the United States, from Ukraine to the Middle East. And it's also not particularly the objective of China, which is smarting under U.S. tech sanctions and eyeing Taiwan. So this is a very, very big global chessboard. And thwarting and containing this, which is vital to market performance, is the purpose of Biden's trip. That's exactly why I'm going to be watching very carefully what he has to say tonight. Only the United States has the reach and the resources to keep this thing contained. This is the time period when America's leadership is vital to the world, but also vital to the things your viewers care about, which is market performance and company performance.
The president's meeting that was supposed to take place in Jordan with the Jordanians, with the Palestinians, with the Egyptian leaders, didn't take place because of what happened. Does that make you concerned that the risk of really expanding this crisis is real and in the forefront? That
would be a key concern, right? On the other hand, I think you've talked on this show the last couple of days, a bunch of people are taking off for Riyadh for the Future Investment Conference that they're having there. I think it's extraordinarily important at this time for American business leaders to actually lean into that relationship.
Are you going?
No. Long ago planned not to go. But I think that the message that we can, regardless of all the other issues that are out there, the big issue out there today is, can we forge this alliance that reorders the Middle East in a way that can create peace and prosperity for everybody involved, including the Palestinians. The Iranians want to disrupt that. The Saudi Arabians are working with Israel and the United States to try to create this new framework, and I think that's really, really important to reinforce. I hope the American business leaders will do that while they're there.
So this hasn't played out in the economy of the markets to date. Are there things that businesses and companies are doing to prepare accordingly, or what happens? Where do you see this?
I think it's right now it's narrowly confined to Israel, and Israeli companies are figuring out, and they're kind of, I think, doing a pretty good job of it. The canary in the coal mine would usually be the oil markets. Mm-hmm. And they've been trading in a range that's kind of within normal volatility. I think there's not a sense at this point that if this thing could be contained, and it's relatively brief, and cooler heads prevail in terms of what the response here is. that this doesn't have a major economic impact. I think Jay Powell's speech today is going to have a chance to have a bigger economic impact.
What's he going to say, Glenn?
I don't know what he's going to say. I know what I'd ask him. Are you going? I'm going to be there.
No, I cover it more effectively from not being there.
I'll be there.
Okay.
I'll be there. So what would you ask?
The question?
Here, the headline of my question would be 3.5 is greater than 2.
Inflation. Meaning,
Yes.
Right.
Meaning, yeah. So Steve's smiling. We've gotten inflation down from roughly 5% to 3.5%, but that's a long way from 2.
But as Mike pointed out, the Fed itself doesn't think it's going to get there until 2025.
Oh, that would be my view.
What's the question?
Oh, no, so not the question. I think the thing on people's minds is going to be, is he going to give any indication of a path to easing before he gets to something that looks like 2? And I think the answer to that is no. As I said to you in the past, I think that the next round of inflation is structural and much harder to get out. It's demographics, deglobalization, decarbonization, debt monetization, and now the incredible overperformance of the U.S. economy we've all talked about here, plus this huge flow issue that you folks have been talking about, which is all the Treasury
stimulus, too.
Yeah,
there's a lot of stimulus that's still pouring in.
But the flow issue would be, what I'm referring to is the massive issuance of Treasury securities that are flooding the markets and also causing rates to stay up. So I think it's highly unlikely that by the way, I'm not worried about a Fed increase in the next meeting or two. It might or might not happen. I don't think it's consequential. I think the markets, in the age of forward guidance, the markets have done the Fed's work for it.